Cam Rising is finally gone from Utah, and hopefully for Utes fans, so are the injury-ridden seasons at quarterback. Devin Dampier is transferring in from New Mexico, and he looks to provide a more stable option at the quarterback position. And while he may not replicate the numbers that Cam Rising had when he was helpful, he'll still be a solid enough quarterback that maybe Utah can improve a little bit from what was a very, very disappointing season in 2024. Looking at the schedule, got a few really tough games on here, mainly against those top Big 12 teams. They did not get a light Big 12 schedule whatsoever. You got Texas Tech, Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor, Kansas State, Kansas, all some of the top teams in the Big 12, definitely all within the top half of the conference. So this is not an easy schedule by any means. We're going to go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10 on the difficulty meter.
Starting off the season on the road against UCLA, a former Pac-12 matchup here. And this is one where I think Utah is going to be the favorite in this one, even though it will be a road game for them. UCLA has fallen off quite hard over the past couple of years and is really a shell of their former self. I don't see them being very competitive. I do think that Utah is going to have a lot of young guys that they're going to have to lean on. And I think those young guys are going to be able to push them over the edge against this UCLA team that I do not feel very strongly about. So 80% chance here. Both teams are a little bit young, so maybe UCLA can pull it off at home. But I'm going to go with Utah on this one. Then the following week, they have their first home game against Cal Poly. 100% chance here. Couldn't tell you a thing about their football team, but Utah is going to be the better one here. Then they are on the road again to face Wyoming. Wyoming was expected to be one of the better teams in the Mountain West Conference last season. They returned a lot of the starting production they had the previous season after that season was very successful. Their head coaching hire was supposed to be one of the better options they had. I believe it was an in-house hire, and they fell short of their expectations by quite a bit. Granted, they were playing in a conference that had the juggernauts of Boise State and UNLV, who are likely to be in the same situation again. But I think this Wyoming team has a lot of potential to bounce back. With it being a home game, maybe there's a little bit of an upset potential, especially with this Utah team being very young. But at the end of the day, Utah is a Power Four school. Wyoming is a Group of Five school. We're going to lean Power Four in this one. So a 90% chance for the Utes in this one. Maybe that's a little bit high. But just because Wyoming was disappointing last season, I think that's what we're going to lean with right now. Then they start Big 12 play, starting off with a home game against the Red Raiders at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is one of those teams that we are very high on going into next season. We think Texas Tech has a legitimate chance at making that Big 12 championship game, maybe even coming away with the Big 12 title. It's going to be an uphill battle because there are those four juggernaut teams in the Big 12, but Texas Tech has all the pieces to really make that leap. And I think their experience is going to outperform any talent or athletic advantages Utah might have. Even then, I think Texas Tech is going to have most of those. So we're going to give Texas Tech a solid chance in this one, only a 25% chance for the Utes to get the win here at home. Then they will go on the road for a very long road trip to West Virginia to face the Mountaineers. Mountaineers, I've seen some conflicting things. Personally, Jonah and I think that they're in for a little bit of a rough season, losing a lot of their starting production from last year. But I think Jonah was telling me that he saw somewhere that there was a projection that West Virginia was going to go 8-4 at a minimum, maybe. I do not see that happening. I think there's way too many holes on that offense. And I think they're losing a lot of guys. So this West Virginia team is going to be in for a little bit rough season, but we'll get to them in a later video. So stick around. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can come back and see that one. But West Virginia, in this case, even though they do have the home field advantage, I think Utah, once again, is going to have enough talent, enough athleticism to compete with them. It's going to be a 60% chance for the Utes in this one just because it is a little bit longer of a road trip. And West Virginia has had a lot of potential the past couple seasons, but think at the end of the day, Utah will be the better team. So 60% chance for them to get the win going into their first bye week.
After that, facing Sam Levitt and Arizona State. This one they do have at home. However, Arizona State was a playoff team last year. And while they may not get back to the college football playoffs this year, they definitely have a really good chance to, and are still going to be one of the top teams in the Big 12. So I really don't see any way that Utah pulls off this upset. Uh, the Sun Devils are just going to be a lot for this Utah team to handle. Next up, you've got the road trip to BYU. This one is a big rivalry matchup, and I don't know. I think BYU is going to be quite a bit more talented than Utah this year. Definitely um, one of the top teams in the Big 12. And the fact that it's on the road really doesn't help Utah much. I like BYU quite a bit for 2025. Don't really see any way that Utah comes out with this win either. Only a 30% chance of a win on the road. Then you got Colorado at home. They did lose both Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter to the NFL draft. Dion's still the head coach, and they brought in a transfer quarterback from Liberty. I do think this is going to be a pretty solid Colorado team, maybe near just above 500, somewhere around that area.
I've
But
heard a lot
they're
about you.
they're still going to be much better than Utah.
Uh,
Next up is Cincinnati. This one we're going to slightly favor Utah, mainly because it's at home. Otherwise, the teams are pretty comparable talent-wise. I actually like Cincinnati maybe just a little bit better with Brendan Sorsby coming back for his second year in the program. He had a decent year last year after transferring from Indiana. And overall, I think every other position's pretty equal. While Cincinnati maybe has the quarterback advantage, I do think that, if Devin Dampier can almost match Sorsby's performance, then there's still a decent chance that Utah is able to defend the home field here. But this one's almost a coin flip. We're just going to barely give the edge to the Utes.
Coming out of that second bye week, they have a tough stretch of games here, starting off against Baylor on the road. Baylor's returning Sawyer Robertson as their starting quarterback. I think he's easily top three in the Big 12 from the quarterback position. It's a pretty loaded, at least in the top four, in my opinion, maybe top five for that quarterback position. But Sawyer Robertson has a ton of potential to break out even more and become really a household name. We're very high on this Baylor team. They started putting it together towards the end of the season, hitting their stride at the right time. I have a lot of faith that this Baylor team can, much like Texas Tech, be really competitive and compete for a Big 12 title. So, especially with it being on the road for Utah here, being the young team that they are, I'm not going to give them that much of a chance in this one. Only a 30% chance for the Utes here. Then they will host the Kansas State Wildcats. Kansas State also has a very solid quarterback returning, and that is Avery Johnson. It's going to be a lot more work on his shoulders this season because I think they're losing a good amount of their wide receiver room. So he's going to have to really build those connections with his young receivers. But if anyone can do it, it's Avery Johnson because he's been one of the better quarterbacks, most consistent quarterbacks in the Big 12 the past couple seasons. Really athletic, can do it all from both sides of the ball. Um, so this Kansas State team should have a fairly easy chance here just because it is on the road for them. We're going to bump it up a little bit from the Baylor stats. So 35% chance for Utah here, but should be a Kansas State win on the road here. Finally, they finished the season off against Kansas on the road. Starting the season off on the road and finishing it on the road. Kind of interesting. But Kansas is a team that did not live up to expectations last season. Jalen Daniels was supposed to bring a lot of life into this program. And he did initially, but last season was a big disappointment for them after having one of their better seasons in recent memory. I think there were some people that were picking Kansas to finish in top four, top five in the Big 12, maybe competing for that Big 12 title, and that did not happen. But Jonah and I think that that is probably a more realistic possibility this season. I think they have learned from their mistakes last season. I think Jalen Daniels is finally poised for his big breakout to really become one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. And with it being at home for the Jayhawks, once again, I don't really see Utah having much of a chance here just because they lack the experience against a team like Kansas who has their starting quarterback returning. So 30% chance for the Utes here to get a win in their final game of the season on the road.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this whole year for Utah, I think the first three games, they should be able to win those. UCLA, maybe, 80% might be a little bit high. I could see UCLA pulling off an upset. I definitely think Utah might still be favored there. Um, but I mean, Cal Poly and Wyoming, those are wins. But this Big 12 schedule is tough. Like, this is a really, really difficult Big 12 schedule. So, I mean, I think making a bowl game is pretty optimistic. They can get there. I think like 6-6 is possible, but I wouldn't project them to go much higher than that.
Yeah, this season really hinges on Devin Dampier elevating his style of play. If he is the same quarterback that we saw at New Mexico last season, who threw for just as many touchdowns as he threw interceptions, it might be a rough ride for Ute fans. But start of the season, like you were saying, is not that bad. Maybe that UCLA game can be tricky. Maybe Wyoming bounces back a little bit, but shouldn't be too difficult. But like you were saying, that Big 12 schedule is tough. West Virginia on the road is really, I think, their easiest one. Maybe Cincinnati at home, but both of those teams have a lot of potential as well. So it really just comes down to how good can the young guys in this Utah team be. So 6-6 is probably where I see them at. Maybe 5 wins too, but it's going to be a tough season. Maybe if they can pull off one upset. Honestly, if there's going to be one or two upsets, it's going to be a home game against Colorado and maybe winning the Holy War rivalry game against BYU because they were close last year, but that was a home game. Now it's on the road, so I don't feel as confident about that, especially with BYU returning Jake Retzlaff. So I think 6-6 is where I see them, and that's maybe a little optimistic, but a bowl game's not entirely out of the question for this Utah team.
That would be a huge improvement from the 5-7 season that we saw in 2024. Our projected win total is actually 5.85 wins for this year. And that's just based off of all those percentages from the last screen. Um, I I do think that 6-6 is a bit of an optimistic prediction, but we are going to go ahead and go with Utah to make a bowl game. Now, here's what really confuses me. The over-under from Vegas is at 7.5. Now, it does favor the under, but that's still suggesting that Utah can win 7 games. And I just, I mean, they would be pulling off a big upset to do that, along with winning every single game that they should. Or that would be multiple upsets, actually. I think that Vegas might disagree with us on a few other teams. So we are going to go with Utah to finish 6-6. Again, a little bit optimistic. We might project them to go a bit lower than that when we come back and look at this again later in the off season. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.